Epicurus lived in the 3rd century BCE, a single man with no children. He was the son of an Athenian citizen, born on the island of Samos in the Aegean Sea. At the age of 18, he traveled to Athens to fulfill his military service, and he later returned to Athens to found a school for his philosophy. That school was called the Garden because the central garden of the building was used as the primary meeting place for his students. Over the garden hung an inscription which read, "Stranger, here you would do well to tarry. Here our greatest good is pleasure." Almost all that's known of the philosophy of Epicurus comes down to us secondhand. Of his 40 or more major works, only 3 letters survive in their entirety. There are few philosophers who are so fundamentally misunderstood by the modern audience as Epicurus of Samos. Mention his name and people imagine an excessive lifestyle comprised of fine wine, gourmet food, luxurious locales, and even drunken orgies. This reputation began in ancient times, when critics, such as Cicero, dismissed Epicureans as irresponsible hedonists who lacked all sense of civic duty. It's true that Epicurus was no civic humanist. After all, Epicurus believed that if you want to be happy, stay away from politics. However, this indulgent and materialistic impression of his philosophy is far from the truth. It's easy to understand the origins of this confusion. For Epicurus, pleasure was the greatest good and pain the greatest evil. So happiness was the result of a simple equation: maximize pleasure and minimize pain, both spiritually and physically. However, pleasure, as Epicurus defines it, is not the result of luxury, wine, food, or any other material thing. Rather, he argued, luxurious food and drinks is no way to protect you from harm. Wealth beyond what is natural is no more use than an overflowing container. Real value is not generated by theaters and baths, perfumes or ointments, but by philosophy. In fact, to see the pursuit of material wealth as a means of deriving pleasure will only lead to unhappiness and more human misery than any other single cause of it. Although he wrote discourses on everything from atomism to music, Epicurus is perhaps best conceived of as an ethicist. He defined justice as a social contract, specifically an agreement we share neither to harm nor be harmed. Remember, maximize pleasure, minimize pain. But more than that, he identified 3 components necessary to live a happy life, namely friendship, freedom, and philosophy. As regards friendship, Epicurus believed that there is nothing in this world more valuable than one's friends. A person who has no friends cannot be happy, just as a person who has many friends cannot be miserable. Of course, he was not talking about our modern social media friends, but true friends, friends you actually be with, talk with, and share with. Having many friends and spending a lot of time together with them is tantamount to happiness. In fact, a happy man spends almost all his time together with his friends. Epicurus argued, before you eat or drink anything, consider carefully who you eat or drink with, rather than what you are to eat or drink. For feeding without a friend is the life of a lion or a wolf. The second component of happiness is freedom. For Epicurus, self-sufficiency is the greatest of all wealth. Other than loneliness from lack of friends, there's nothing more painful than lack of freedom. In other words, the pain that comes from having to answer to somebody else just to obtain what you need to live. Now, Epicurus certainly wouldn't say something so foolish as money doesn't matter. He knew that the lack of money could easily make people very unhappy, particularly if they didn't have enough money to even take care of their basic needs. However, he also believed that luxury and the pursuit of luxury could cause almost as much pain as poverty could. To live simply and be free is better than to have a luxurious lifestyle if you have to rely on others for that luxury. Eventually, Epicureans abandoned the city life and lived outside the city in communes where they grew their own fruits and vegetables. It must have been a hard life, but it also meant that the Epicureans were completely self-sufficient and therefore free. After all, he who is not satisfied with a little is satisfied with nothing. The final component of happiness is philosophy. That is, to live an examined life. Remember Socrates? Well, he said the unexamined life is not worth living. Epicurus would have wholeheartedly agreed. You should take the time to investigate your own feelings, your own thoughts, your ideas, examine your anxieties and fears, and talk them over with your friends. It's a bit Freudian, really. By understanding your feelings, you can be free of their influence on you, making room for more happiness, because by removing anxiety, you have minimized pain and brought more pleasure into your life. This threefold philosophy of happiness, friends, freedom, and philosophy, is what Epicurus is best remembered for today. But during the Renaissance, he was known better for what we call the Epicurean trilemma, or Epicurean paradox, namely this: is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? If he is neither able nor willing, then why call him God? Epicurus was the first thinker to wrestle with this problem of evil in relation to the existence of God. If God exists, how can there be evil? How could he let this happen? Does he just not have the ability to stop evil from happening? Or perhaps he just doesn't care. In which case, why do we even call him God? For generations to come, Western philosophers and theologians would strive to solve this paradox. But Epicurus himself, who actually highlighted this paradox, he didn't find it especially troubling. In fact, he wrote, "Don't fear God, don't worry about death. What is good is easy to get, and what is terrible is easy to endure."